deciding whether or not to enter that virtual race or that virtual event. So welcome to the channel. My name is Brian. This channel is all about professional growth and development. And today I'm going to take you through a process that I think could help when it comes to really deciding whether or not to enter that virtual race or that virtual event, which we're all kind of cooped up now, and it's really hard to stay motivated and really sustain some consistency. And I'm going to break down my process for how that might go. Recently, I finished and documented my marathon journey. I had to run that race virtually. I was as prepared as I would ever be for my first marathon at 45 years old. Having gone through that process, I really appreciated and found a few things that were refreshing when it came to running something virtually. And that was that I had some accountability, and I really had to get clear on what it takes to train properly for the event to come. And honestly, there were some steps that I had to take and refine throughout that process that really set me up to be, well, as prepared as I was. I decided recently to sign up for the New York State virtual race. So the NYSVR, you can find it on Facebook, NYSVR 434, and I'll put the link in the description below. I went through a process before that, and my process that may help you if you're considering signing up for a virtual race. So just a little bit more about that 434. It is a race across the state from Western New York, Buffalo, all the way downstate to Times Square in New York City. You have a window, basically works from May 15th to September 15th to get your 434 in. There's an interactive map to show you where you are running across the state. And there is a large community on Facebook. So, which will bring me to my first point in the video. I think there are three major things to consider when it comes to your decision for running a virtual race. I think the 3 points are intentionality and deciding on why. The next important point, I think, are what are the actionable steps required to get the task done, or your how. And then the final part of this, I think, to consider and really reflect on is what's the accountability and what's the community engagement? And does this satisfy the goals that you have? So I'll talk about the first one here, and then I'm going to get out on this run, and I'm going to talk about the rest. The first one, I think, is really important. The intentionality really clarifies for me the questions I need to ask myself. Why get into this race to begin with? What's the purpose? Is there something larger at play here? And for me, running in this New York State virtual race, I decided that if I ever run a live event in the fall or when things resume, I think it's incumbent upon me to be as prepared as I possibly can be. And so I would have already run and had a good base going into it, but I don't know that I would have been as committed to accomplishing a task. By signing up for a virtual race, it puts me on a path to really be intentional about being prepared in the long run. So my intentions behind this is to stay prepared, stay consistent, stay with that base. And I think having something on my radar, like a virtual event, can really help with that consistency. I want to be the type of person that can enter events and train for them properly. So in order to do so, having 434 miles in a short 124 days, and I'll break this down in another video, but having that on my radar really casts a vote for the type of runner or endurance athlete or person I want to become. And it's always going to be much bigger than just that. By doing this work or having this body of work, it puts me on a path to become the person who has the sort of dedication, the consistency, the habits, and the routines to be the type of person that can amass 434 in a short 124 days. So that was my first point when it comes to deciding whether or not to run a virtual event. Maybe that first point helps you. Let's get to the other two steps right after we put in some work. All right, here we go. The next thing I think about is the action. What does it take to get the goal done? What are the actionable steps required to actually achieve the goal that I want, or the desired goal that I want? And do the actions cast a vote for the type of person I want to be when this is all said and done? Does it move me closer to that person? I know going into this, there are gonna be days where I don't feel like running. So how do I recover from those days? I know there are gonna be days when I put in more work than I expected to. So how do I not get too high when it comes to those days? It's about consistent work, effort, and action. So what are the actionable steps to meet the desired goal? And hey, look, the last part of this, when it comes to deciding whether or not you're gonna do some sort of virtual competition or endurance event like I am with this New York State virtual race across the state, the 434, is that it holds you accountable. It holds you accountable to yourself because you have something on the calendar that you're working towards or things that you're trying to improve. The other thing that it does, and especially does for me, is that it builds community. I realize that I'm not in this alone. There are upwards of 2,000 other participants building a community. And I have that group to be accountable for. And that's why I continue to sort of post these runs and post those things, because it gives me the responsibility of making sure that I'm putting my work in and therefore sharing my work out to the larger community who has empathy for what it means to go through that. So if you're considering a virtual event, I would highly recommend it. I think it encapsulates everything that we talked about in this episode, from intentionality to the action to the accountability. And those are the pieces that I think will help me improve and continue to reach my goals. If you are considering something or working towards some sort of goal, whether it's a virtual race or something you're setting for yourself, I'd love to hear about it and your approach. Does the intentionality, actionable steps, and accountability kind of framework help you clarify your goals or your intentionality? If so, let me know. Drop me a comment below. And as always, thank you so much for watching and participating in the comments. Thanks.